The Children's Center, and I've been there too, and it's a very, very nice place. If anybody ever hasn't been there and has the opportunity to do a tour of the Children's Center. Anyway, I'm convening the meeting. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mum?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Roth?
Here.
Mayor Neely?
Here. Does anybody have future agenda items for a work session?
I do.
Go ahead.
I have two. One is a discussion on the Heritage Grove up at Waterboard, or the Public Works site, on having that declared as a Heritage Grove. I want to get an update on that. And the second is I want to get an update on the letter to Union Pacific for the Coast Starlight stopping here. Do we have? I don't remember getting updated on that one.
Did they ever reply to us?
I thought, did I see something come back?
I don't remember I don't think we got a reply, or if we did, it wasn't the one we were hoping for.
Just not.
So we'll just pretend that we didn't and go ahead and...
Yeah, why don't we just check into that, and we'll let you know by
Yeah.
email whether or not we got a reply.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You have that, Nancy?
Now we have some discussion items. The composition of the Urban Renewal Commission. Staff apparently wants some input on this. We have Eric Underwood listed.
Eric?
Welcome to Oregon City, Eric.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Diving right in.
You betcha.
Well, this is, I'm bringing this to the Commission tonight as a continuation of our discussion during the retreat regarding the composition of the Urban Renewal Commission. In my report, I've outlined various alternatives to the current structure. I've done a little research before I brought this to Commission as to the structure of other commissions throughout the state. Turns out we're unique in the way our commission is structured. For one, we're the only commission that has an even number of commissioners. We have more members than any other commission that I've studied in the state, and the typical structure throughout the state for commissions is that being just the council members or the elected body, and usually they have a citizen advisory committee that makes recommendations to the commission. So some of the alternatives that I propose, and these are just conversation starters, so to speak. One of the alternatives would be to designate the city commissioners as the Urban Renewal Commission, designate the city commissioners as the Urban Renewal Commission with the advisory board appointed, and maintain a combination of the citizen commissioners and citizen members that results in an odd number of total commissioners.
It's my car alarm. I'm sorry. To keep
Having background music's kind of nice. I like
I'm
it.
like, okay.
So having an odd number of total membership, and then maintain that combination that you have now of city commissioners and citizen members that result in an odd number and a reduction of total membership. And so tonight, I guess we can just discuss these alternatives and others that the commission might have in mind. So I'll just turn it over unless you have any questions.
Comments?
Well, I'd like to discuss the advisory part of this that you had suggested, citizen advisory. Is that like a 3-person, a 5-person? Have you gotten any feedback on what that looks like?
Well, typically it's anywhere from 3 to about 7 members.
Okay.
for the advisory.
And do they meet with the applicants before, and so then there's the recommendation put forward to the commission? Is that how it works?
Well, yeah, what they would do is, and what I've experienced in the past is the advisory board will meet like once a quarter or as needed, discuss certain projects. Staff will bring the projects to the commission, certain issues to the commission or to the advisory board, and they will formulate a consensus and make a recommendation that will then be passed up to the Urban Renewal Commission to vote on.
Okay.
But they don't have voting rights. They just make recommendations.
Right. And they could actually meet regularly if needed.
They could meet regularly if
Yeah.
needed, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's how you structure the bylaws, what you put into the bylaws for that group.
Okay.
So, however the commission decides.
I don't see a recommendation in here that would address making the citizen representatives from the city as a whole, rather than having designated Park Place McLaughlin representation.
Right.
And that's something I think that we need to look at.
Okay.
Is that a bylaw thing?
It-
Or is that a...
It's a bylaw
Yeah.
thing.
We'd have to
Yes, it is.
Change our bylaws.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So also, whatever the commission decides, I think we need to figure it out and put it in the charter so we don't have this yo-yo thing going on where we have citizens, no citizens, back and forth. Just so that we can have consistency.
Did you mean put it in a resolution or an
Or,
ordinance?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The charter one is a little bit more problematic.
Well, yes, resolution.
okay.
Thank you. For consistency, because, businesses come to us and they want our support, and they don't know how they feel about things,
Right.
So we might be able to just record some of the feedback I want to make sure our staff is tracking with what the commissioners are bringing to us. So one of the concepts is to have people chosen from at large rather than that will, I think, help ameliorate some of the neighborhood
I totally agree.
political stuff that we've seen. And then the second one was to think about the staff time or the efficiency of it all. That's another concern. So when you have your bylaws, I think one of the reasons they meet quarterly and then as needed is because if they meet every single week, and then we have Eric will be staffing that, and then he'll be here the next night. So it's
Well, we don't even meet every week,
Right.
but probably
Right.
maybe once a month or once every other month or something like that.
I think there's some benefit, and we can specify that they actually be voting residents, actual residents of the city if we wish to, but I do think there's benefit of having people from the commercial area on the Urban Renewal Agency for this Urban Renewal Agency, because we are dealing predominantly with commercial areas. They don't need they don't necessarily have to be within businesses residing in the Urban Renewal Agency area, but I think there'd be some benefit to doing this. Currently we don't have the commissioners that we currently have are not actually business owners. They may be involved in some decision making in terms of business structure and so on, but we don't have any architects here. We don't have any engineers here. We don't, and I really think, and that's fine for the elected officials. I don't have a problem with that. But I would think there'd be a benefit if we're going to have an advisory group to have people that could comment on the feasibility, the economic feasibility of a project that's being put forward. I think we probably have enough people throughout Oregon City that it can be drawn from Oregon City at large
definitely.
to do that.
Definitely, yeah.
I think there's a real benefit. I think, I guess that's all I'll say about it.
Well, I would definitely agree with that. I think I think on the HRB, don't they have like one spot that has what is it?
it's really hard to fill that one.
Yeah.
Very hard to fill.
Well, because of the
Right.
But it would be kind of nice to have those people with their expertise. And I know that we have them that live within our city. We just have to encourage them to apply.
Yeah, and when you think about architects and engineers, urban renewal, depending on your view of it, but it's largely a financial tool.
Right.
So
Right.
that maybe the finance sector, there's certainly we have more banks and
Yeah.
and financial services than we have architects, for example.
That might be a good
So
one,
that
too.
may be.
And I do like, do you want to talk about the kind of the structure of it, the bylaws? Because I can just say, I kind of do like the chamber rep, just so they have a group that they kind of report back to and get information to bring forward. That's the other piece we got to figure out is, does the advisory group need to kind of be seeking input, or is it just their opinion? That's the other piece that we got to work out.
The public participation in anything that would be on advisory board's agenda would be open to the public, just like all our other advisory boards are.
Right.
The topics of discussion would be published, and people would be aware of what was coming up, so they'd be able to report in any other way. When it comes down to number, I don't think we have a single advisory board that I'm aware of in the city that has as few as 3 people. And I think I think we try to have them all with odd numbers. But I don't think we have any of them that are a few of 3 people. And I doubt that we'd have that much trouble recruiting people to be on an advisory board, personally, for an urban renewal agency.
I think that would be something that people would enjoy doing. We'd probably have to fight them off.
Well, we could have the composition of the advisory board.
Don't you think? I mean, come on. If it's open to the general population, I think we'd get a lot of applicants.
And I think in terms of the forgetting the neighborhood structure, we could seek out, I think, 3 citizens at large without the partitioning of any given neighborhood association, and then perhaps identify a couple of specialty positions, be it a representative chamber, be it a person from the financial industry. I mean, we could give that a fair amount of thought as to how it be structured. But
yeah.
A bit of specialty, I think, would be a benefit to the advisory committee itself and to us.
I would agree. So that's kind of the way that I'd like to move on.
Is there a
this.
consensus around those concepts? Because so far we know there's a consensus on having members that are at large.
Right, absolutely.
And
Well, I know we're not going to make a decision, obviously, tonight, because we can't, but I hate to see us cut any of the citizen seats. So I'm not really leaning towards having advisory group or an advisory. I'm leaning more to keeping it the same as it is, partly because I don't want to have this going back and forth every couple of years. I think the reason those citizens are there was for a real specific reason, and I have a hard time yanking that just because it's not working the way we want it. There's other ways to fix the problems, I think, without cutting the citizens out. I don't know that you would get the same interest from citizens being involved on an advisory committee as you would on the commission itself. Maybe that's not true, but I just advisory is advisory, and we can listen to it or not, and so there's not a whole lot of
But we do listen to them. I mean,
well, yeah, I know,
you know.
but I don't know. I just the act of saying we're gonna we have these citizen seats and now we're not going to have it just sends a message that we're taking it back and making our own decisions regardless. And I'm cautious about doing that. I also though have a problem with the even number. So I guess if I was going to minimize the commission at all, I would say minimize it by 1 seat and look at what overlaps there are. And we've talked about there might be overlaps in terms of business, whether it's a business rep or a chamber rep, and is that the same thing or what? I don't know how we would shrink it down by 1, but at least that would get us to an odd number. And my feeling is that the citizen seats are at large.
And so that's what I'm leaning towards. I just, and I'm willing to listen to all these other ideas. I just don't want to. I feel that sending a message that, okay, just a couple of years ago we put citizens on that commission because we were concerned about the way money was being spent, and we had a real need for having that citizen involvement. And then to say now we're going to yank it doesn't sit right. Doesn't feel right. Doesn't look right. I don't think to the public. So I'm going to have a hard time, I think, supporting that.
Well, the other thing we could do, too, is have them run for office, have them elected by the
Right.
general population.
I don't know.
That is a possibility. Thinking outside the box.
Would you all do that?
Would you run for office?
Rocky, I think I agree with you. We're down to 4. And
We're down
We've
to
had-
what?
we're down to 4 of the non-elected people on the commission at this point, so we actually have an odd number
Yeah.
by
Right.
by decisions we've made.
But I assume we're going to have a city commissioner at some point.
I assume so. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, no, I was forgetting that we have to get a city commissioner on too. I think we may have that taken care of by the end of the
Right.
month.
Yes. I hope so.
We appear to have some very good applicants.
Well, and I guess the other question, and I don't want to. I'm wondering if we make this final decision once we have a full commission, or do we feel we make that decision before? I don't know. I wouldn't mind getting input on this subject from the other city commissioners.
that's-
So I don't know.
I would
agree.
agree. I would agree.
I tend to agree with you. I prefer to have the citizens committee. I don't know what the iterations were before, but I know we've had 3 periods where there were citizens committees. I thought there were 2, and then Alice Mowers told me that she was chair of the Urban Renewal Commission at one time, and I knew that had to happen before I ever lived in Oregon City. And there have been 2 other sets. The last one was voted out because 2 new people came in and convinced an existing one should all be elected officials, and there really wasn't any basis of complaint of the composition of the citizen group. My preference then would also to be going with 4 non-elected people on the Urban Renewal Commission and the 5 elected
Commissions,
people on the Urban Renewal Commission.
So a total of 9.
I think we have a broader. I think we have a broader set of inputs coming in the process. And we got more sets of ears listening. So
what would that leave us with? Right now, we have a Park Place, a McLaughlin, a business, a chamber, and what's the other?
one thing we could do.
At large.
One thing we could do is to simply take and let the other current positions sitting go through their current period of time, and then and talk about the restructuring, how it's to be done. But we've already got people that are on that knows more or less how the urban renewal functions, and we can maintain the 4, and then see how we phase it. The only thing is we might have to think of a little bit of an alternative phasing, because I think with the vacated position, that was the only position that ended and had to be reappointed. And so, we'd have to at one point switch to a 1, 2, and 3 year basis in some form. And with this group, we won't have that. But that could be phased in. I think we had 1 person for 1 year, 2 for 2, and 2 for 3 at this point, had we made an appointment at the Park Place.
I have a question. Are we duplicating ourselves with a business and a chamber person?
Well, that was one of our questions.
One of the points of discussion, and
Yeah.
I think we could just simply draw on the business. We can give recommendations on any applicants from the chamber in the process of filling a business position.
Right.
And
So
I
that would
think-
leave us with 3 at large, and then one or the other, naming it one or the other.
Right. And of course, you were suggesting a broad, and of course, a financial institution is also a business institution. So, I mean, if we had the applicants.
You're looking at me, but
Well, you brought, I mean, when we're talking about the kind of expertise we could draw on, that's one that you put forward.
yeah. The only caveat I would describe this the way describe my little brother. You're simple and small, and that's how I would.
I don't imagine you describe him that way anymore.
No, I don't. But I just think the more simple you can keep it, the better off you'll be in the long run.
Yeah.
Eric, do you have anything else for us? Any other suggestions?
Well, I was thinking, maybe one business representative and one at-large member.
Go down to a 7.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, I'm looking at this from an efficiency perspective, and usually 7 is a good number from my experience in working with committees and urban renewal commissions. 7 is a good number. More than that, I think you run into some obstacles. You have more potential to run into some obstacles along the way, especially when projects become more complex and greater decisions have to be made. So, but I mean, it's really all in how you manage it. But it just seems like 7 is a good number.
I mean, how many people are on the Metro Council?
Yeah.
I think 7.
Yeah. And so I think you can capture that citizen involvement with 7. You can capture the at-large citizenry as well as the business community with that.
Well, the fact of the matter, every one of us are in large position. I mean, we are elected by the populace. We are.
Yeah. And we are the citizens.
People. And we have to live here, and we tend to be, historically, forever, that I can think of, there's been at least 3 people from the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association on the city commission.
Yes, yes.
That's kind of the nature of the community.
I'm the odd person out.
7 is a lucky number for some people.
Can I just make one point of clarification? I think I heard Rocky say that you'd be taking away the citizen involvement by eliminating the citizen members on the board. I just want to make it clear that you're not getting rid of citizen involvement if you do the advisory board. It's still in compliance with ORS standards. You still have that citizen
I'm not worried
involvement.
about rules and written paper. I'm worried about the impression that it sends to the community. I can care less about that.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure you didn't think we were getting rid of citizen involvement. That's not part of the suggestion. So
well, I mean, I could include my class in with one student, or I could include all 30. It sends a different message.
All depends upon how you want to spin it.
I don't like saying a couple years ago, this is the way we're going to set it so citizens can be involved, and now saying we're going to take that away. It's not. Even in a couple seats, I think it's breaking that commitment that we made. So, and it wasn't even one I made, but I'm not comfortable with it. But I definitely agree that none of these changes should be made with the people that are currently
We can let those terms. We can let
I
those
think
terms
that's a
go,
really big mistake, no matter what we do.
And then we figure out our phasing, and maybe with that, maybe if we're making that decision, we're going to have a year really to work out the details, because I think there will be 2 people that would be slated to end with the current year,
The 12.
and then the 2 more in the next one, and we could make a decision as to whether we wanted to have a 7 or a 9 member body, but we'd have to stagger the years for incoming people a bit differently in the process.
And I may not be here in a year, so you could go to 7.
Well, if you think about the Urban Renewal Budget Committee meeting last year, you might not want to be here.
Yeah.
Remember how big that was?
Yeah,
So
I do.
that got pretty unwieldy.
I do.
So, I mean, for the time being, we can run with the vacant position permanently, and then do
no, because
restructuring.
the commissioner will be filling.
Well, no, the vacancy is a non-elected position vacant.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, the non-vacant.
Now I'm
it
tracking with you,
Like
sorry.
Yeah,
9.
and we are at this. We are currently then at the 9,
All right.
and we'll have an opportunity to have the dialogue with the full Urban Renewal Commission in the process. And there's no reason why we can't invite some comments if anybody wants to come forward. I mean, this is just a discussion among 4 of us. If others of you, I mean, there's several of you. Yeah, come on up.
Nancy's going to get you to fill out a little sheet.
Because we don't know who you are.
So we don't know who you are, Tom.
She'll get your name, I think, but if she doesn't know your name, then we'll ask for it.
I'm in trouble if she doesn't know his name.
This is more informal.
My name is Trouble.
Does start with a T.
It starts with a T. I've already addressed you, Tom Guile, Oregon City. I've already addressed you last week about my thoughts about it, but as I sat back here and listening to all your thoughts about it, I agree with what you're all saying. I kind of like Rocky's at the point of keeping it at 9, because I think your urban renewal worked fine. The only problem you had was because of Park Place. And we're the ones who stirred the pot because of all the fighting over positioning for the last year, since last January. And I think if you eliminate that neighborhood, as I've said before, of being in, having to select somebody and having that internal fight that they each have, I think your Urban Renewal Commission, even at 9, is going to work perfectly. And just do it at large from any part of the community. Anyone's open to apply for it. You still may have the same people that you had from Park Place again, but you don't have an internal one right within a neighborhood. So again, I think your urban renewal, every time I've ever attended a meeting, it looks like it's working fine. The people you have on it are good. They look in and they do a lot of research. Your only problem was what happened in Park Place while people were fighting over positioning themselves to who could get that golden egg right there and be a part of the urban renewal and change things. So keep up what you're doing and what your thoughts are, and that would just be my suggestion as someone who's watched this intensely for the last year. So just my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just come on forward. William? And you can, Brian, you can come forward too at the same time if you want to. You broke it. Next,
Start the clock. Yeah. Good evening. My name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City, and boy, I've got so many thoughts about this, and it's difficult to. I didn't realize that there was going to be an opportunity to speak, or I would have been a little more organized. So let me try to highlight a couple of thoughts. One is I'm tickled silly that the Commission is looking at this at the restructuring of the Urban Renewal Commission, but I think that you ought to be asking yourselves why. And one of the reasons why is because the current structure is dysfunctional. It doesn't work for all the reasons that Eric pointed out. The fact that it's an odd number, there's too many of 20 people on an Urban Renewal Commission budget committee is, as you saw, dysfunctional is putting it kindly. And I like the idea of keeping things small and simple. I'm concerned about Rocky's comment about the impression of citizen involvement. And I think it's important that we have citizen involvement. As you know, that I've worked hard for citizen involvement. I don't know that citizen involvement equates to having unelected, basically unaccountable citizens at large or otherwise making decisions, potential decisions on tens of millions of dollars with no real fiscal accountability. And this is my biggest concern, is that when I was pushing hard for citizen involvement on Urban Renewal Commission, what I wanted was advisory capacity, because there's just way too much information for 5 city commissioners, I think, to try to have to wade through without the benefit of more eyes looking on that material. There's a lot of material, as you well know, to try to study through all of that. Whether or not the additional citizen members need to have voting authority, I think, is really the nut that you should be grappling with. My personal opinion is the only reason why I do not think that they should be, the way they should have voting privileges, is because they have not been elected by the people. And you can say, well, they've been appointed, and that's true. But other commissions that are appointed, well, there are quasi-judicial, such as the Planning and the Historic Review Board and so on. But they're typically not dealing with the size of issues that the Urban Renewal Commission deals with. And I really believe that the City Commission should be where the buck stops insofar as making those decisions, but keep the citizens for input as advisors. That's my thoughts on it.
We have more of a dialogue here. Usually we don't comment on citizens' comments, but this is intended to be, I think, a dialogue situation. I would disagree with you in terms of the Planning Commission. We just don't have that much development going on in Oregon City.
Right.
But in fact, the Planning Commission oftentimes handles as much material as we do in terms of their decision making, and they are all appointed.
Yeah.
There's a structure, of course, for them making a decision, the capability of making appeals to the City Commission and so forth, but they are a governing body, and so I don't quite agree with you. We make appointments to people who make big decisions when we appoint people to the Planning Commission, or when I appoint.
Okay, I'll see you that point, Mr. Mayor, and want you to consider that possibly the most important thing, the end result that you want, get something done.
Yeah.
Get something done, because not a lot has been happening. I mean, a couple of facades are nice, but getting something done to get jobs and get this economy moving. And that's what your end goal, that's the prize that you want to keep your eyes on.
Thank you.
All right, Brian Shaw, Oregon City, current chairman of Urban Renewal Commission. I am really kind of moving towards having a 9-member commission. And I kind of like the way it's set up because the Urban Renewal District, there's 2 neighborhoods that are affected, and that's McLaughlin and Park Place. So I thought it was the correct thing to do is actually have a representative from those neighborhoods. Now, how they got to that position and stuff obviously needs to be restructured a little bit, probably in one neighborhood. But so I kind of think that the way it's set up right now is fine, especially because McLaughlin is heavily impacted by the downtown urban renewal district. So I think that does need to be represented. Now, as far as having an architect on board, I hope that we can also include a lowly building designer, possibly, that could fit that need.
That's a good one.
5 years of school, same schooling, but anyway. So I'm kind of thinking that way, but also having, I thought when you look at having the number, and we have to admit that this last year has been rather unique in this Urban Renewal Commission.
Oh, those are good words. I like those, Brian.
Yeah.
Very unique.
And so I hate to use that as what normally should happen here. And I think if you've noticed in the last couple urban renewal sessions that things have gone a lot smoother. And so I would like to kind of continue the way we are, but do it at 9 members. I think that's probably a good thing. So, okay.
Thank you. So I guess that did bring up a question to me. What have we accomplished this last year on urban renewal?
What's that?
What have we accomplished with urban renewal last year?
I think most of the things that you've seen is able to. Well, first of all, we see we were talking about this last year, but the point is we've had many projects that have gone forward that probably would not have been able to do so without urban renewal funding. Matching monies that we've used for metro transportation improvement projects where there's federal dollars and the city needs a match, and it's been a source of it.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Well,
but I guess my question is, and that was a good question, is last year what did our Urban Renewal Commission do, and what is the purpose of urban renewal? Maybe we need to go back to Urban Renewal 101 and figure it out and see if we support it.
I think I understand the purpose of urban renewal. It's to do projects within the urban renewal district.
Right.
There's been a bit of a sea change, both because of the recall process and the case of the Park Place problems, but we all learn from that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't know that there's even if you had the 5 elected officials serving it, I can tell you at different points while I've served on the commission, there was a real question of whether we're going to have an urban renewal commission at all. There were 3 people that were generally opposed to having urban renewal. They couldn't get their votes together at the same time, and so it didn't get terminated. Anytime you're dealing with money issues, there's going to be discussions about how they can best be used. But I don't know. Urban Renewal 101 is what we need. We have different philosophies on this body. There's some people that feel that you shouldn't use it for example, public entities. You should use it for private projects. Although I can think of not only Rocky, but I can think of several people on the commission that even opposed Urban Renewal Commission actually supported projects that involved infrastructural work.
Sure.
So when you know you have a funding source and you know there's no other funding source and you think there's a good project that could be done by Urban Renewal, even some people that have opposed it have gone ahead and said, well, even though I oppose urban renewal, it's funding that's available on a good project. I wouldn't let this last couple of years be the determining factor of whether it's going to work or not. I think the same kinds of perhaps done in a better communication form would have still been coming up, whether we had the 10-member or the 5-member Urban Renewal Commission. And I think we'll probably be sensitive to people that come in with extreme notions in terms of the advisory body. I guess it's, if we're agreed to let the 9-member Urban Renewal Commission go forward and then and determine the structure of it, we can do it over this next year. I don't think it's something we have to come to a decision immediately on. If we all agree that we're going to have a 9-member Urban Renewal Commission and the people who are currently on it can be retained, come forward, Dan, while I'm talking. And then make the decision of the specific structure over the next few months.
But we still have our 5th commissioner that should have input.
Yeah, but we're not making any decisions as to the structure other than not filling the citizen vacant position. And so we're going to have the 9.
Okay.
And I'm sure we'll have a decision on the 5th member of the City Commission by the end of the month.
Good evening, Dan Fowler, Oregon City. Just a couple thoughts.
Are you an architect?
No, but I'm somewhat versed in building and development. And it would be good to have some more of those people on the Urban Renewal Board.
Yes.
Get people on the board that know how to get something done, that know how to build, know how to do something. And I think that's critical, and that's not a criticism in terms of people who've been appointed or people who are on there now. I think there's a couple of things it's hard to wrestle with because there's a lot of different parts to the issue, and you can kind of put your hand around one, and then yet it doesn't square up with another. So just some thoughts. First, when it comes to size, I would think, first overarching thought over the whole thing is something that was said a minute ago, and I had written down also. What's the purpose of urban renewal? And the purpose is to carry out the urban renewal plan, to get it done and close it. Raise your assessed value, take a blighted area, make it better, and close it and be out of business. That's the purpose. So if you can keep your purpose in mind, in all things you do, what accomplishes that purpose the best? Is it size that gets too big? Because you're not trying to hurt representation of the city, but your purpose is to get the plan done. So try to keep that as an overarching thing. So when it comes to size, I think about functionality. And so I tend to think, well, 7 is better than 9 when it comes to functioning, but you don't want, I think you wrestled with the exact question. You're not trying to hurt the people that are there, and how do you do that? Because I think if you were to start over, you'd probably say, yeah, 7's okay, but how do you get there while you're already there? So I think, right? I mean, so the idea of transitioning them over time as their terms expired seems reasonable if you want to get to a function number. The other thing that comes to my mind when it comes to function, and was also said, is the fact that by law you have to double the number of people on Urban Renewal Board when it comes to the Budget Committee.
Yeah.
So I go, wow, in that terms of function, I really like 7 better than 9. Again, no offense to anybody sitting there right now is 9, but that begins to seem like a more functional body. So, so maybe the answer is move to 7, make a decision so you go there, and then transition as the people go off. And I don't know who's expiring, who's not. I couldn't tell you.
None of us have died yet.
No, no, I meant in terms of the citizens member. Now, when you look at that same discussion when it comes to advisory or not advisory, I think if you have a 7-member board, don't need for advisory whatsoever. It's easy to make that decision. I go, well, that's easy. Then we don't need an advisory board if we have that. And I do agree that you are citizen members also. Mm-hmm. When you think about urban renewal districts, the non-citizen members typically are that business rep. Mm-hmm. So we have good citizen participation, in my mind, on urban renewal. What we need is business representation on urban renewal. Again, no offense to citizens who might want to be there. I hope every citizen member that would apply to fill it, whether you end up at 7 or 9, has business background. That's really what you need.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you were going to keep a number higher in urban renewal, then I'd say, well, you stay the urban renewal board, keep 5 members of your advisory board. But I don't know if I like that in terms of efficiency and the overall thing of getting something done either. So you got to come back to.
Right.
So
I didn't follow that. One more time.
If you're going to say, let's definitely have an advisory board with more members, because of the comment before, we don't have an advisory committee that has 3 members on it. That's a pretty small advisory committee.
Right.
So if you're going to go and say, well, let's have a bigger advisory committee of 7 now, or of 5 now, or of 7 now, and just strictly be advisory, if you guys stayed as the urban renewal body, then I wouldn't stay at just 2 members or 3 members. I'd get that advisory body at least up to 5. But I'd come back then to the overarching thing of how do I get something done and efficiency, and I'd say go to 7 as a body and forget the advisory. It's going to be a lot less work for your staff, a lot less meetings. Everybody's hearing the same information, and you have a 7-member urban renewal commission with businesses and citizen members as you are. Right. So I would say forget the advisory board, get to 7 members. Eventually, if you want to transition over time, and you're going to have the most efficient and I think good represented board. The other thing that's key is appoint people to urban renewal that believe in urban renewal and want to carry out its functions. I'm probably going to steal Blaine's thunder, but because I think he said it to me the other you wouldn't put somebody who didn't believe in historic preservation on the Historic Review Board. Sure. You wouldn't put somebody on there that wanted to tear down every historic building in town. Now, I'm being a little dramatic, but you want to have a real belief in the function of urban renewal, or they shouldn't be on the urban renewal board because their job is to carry it out.
Right.
Okay. So, what else did I have down here? I think that's it. So I don't know if I've confused you or just given you more to think about, but those are my thoughts. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you.
I'm Blaine Meyer, and I'm an Oregon City business owner and live in unincorporated Oregon City. And I just want to echo Dan's comments. I come from I'm an investment advisor, and so I look at urban renewal and I say the real key to this is return on investment. And so these decisions, whatever the project is, whatever the proposal is, really needs to be evaluated in terms of what is the return that the city's going to experience from this project. And I think one of the things I've noticed is that you have political philosophies that are coming into play, and you can't avoid that, I'm sure, but it just seems to me that having people on the advisory committee, whether they're voting members or not, have the ability to represent the investment side of things and to be able to make a case for why this is a good investment long term. And so I would just echo the comments that Dan made and encourage you to look at that and add those kinds of people onto the board that would be able to give that kind of input. So that's basically what I want to say.
Great,
So
thank
thanks
you.
for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've gotten a fair amount of input, and I think if we're agreeable to let the Urban Renewal Board stand as it is and then transition to whatever we're going to do, we've got a bit more time to think about the process, and including the new member of the commission when that person comes in.
So this will continue to be on a work session
It
later
will be.
on.
It surely will.
Does the commission have any preference? I'm assuming a work session after you get your next member.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want us to give it a couple of months, or do you want to?
Well, I think
Right back.
there's a benefit for the new member to have a bit of time.
So 2 months, do you think?
Until we get further notice, or you?
Well,
Well, no, I think 2 months is
2
probably,
Okay. 2 months.
probably
2 months.
okay, but I don't think we ought to hit on the first meeting.
April?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
Now, the Willamette Valley Resilience Compact, Nancy Cushaw. The meeting she drug me to.
Nancy's good at that, isn't she?
She does it so sweetly.
Big enough to drag you.
With a smile on her face. Come on,
No,
Mayor.
I know she had she told John Lewis to drag me along. That's what she told him. She told him to
That
do.
was a carpooling maneuver. The drive less, save more.
There you go. I like it.
So I'm here tonight to discuss the Willamette Valley Resilience Compact and to allow the City Commission to become more informed about it, discuss a little bit, and not decide tonight, but to come to some sort of conclusion about whether or not the City Commission is interested in joining the compact. And briefly, the compact represents an integrated, cooperative approach led by local governments that engages state and federal agencies, stakeholders from the private sector, and non-governmental organizations to strengthen community and regional resilience and build a sustainable future for the entire Willamette Valley. And that sounds pretty bold, but and it could be that it's such a broad goal. It could be that over time we just make baby steps towards this kind of an endeavor. But this kind of an endeavor could be important in terms of at least having some sort of structure in place as we move into changes throughout the valley. And particularly, I think we're looking at how do we collaborate, cooperate as changes come upon us with agriculture, water, energy supply. Things are changing in this generation. And then to say nothing of natural hazards and economic issues and climate, and then even public health. There's a lot of changes going on with how we care for our people, and there's a broad diversity in the kinds of needs. But I think we do find, and what we've kind of found so far at the table is that the Willamette Valley has a lot in common with one another, and it feels like there's a good reason for us working all together because there's so much common interest. We're not mountain towns. We have the same kind of climate, and we have similar agriculture. So we also have we have 3 of our state universities in this area, and then there are multiple private institutions, all of which can contribute greatly to keeping us smart about our future. So I put together a little slideshow. I believe you recognize Mayor Neely up there on the
Yeah, I do.
I didn't know I was going to have to do that either.
Where was this facility at?
Salem.
This was in Salem at Willamette University. So what is the compact? I've already mentioned that it's intended to be an integrated and cooperative approach led by local governments. And we talked also about what the purpose is to enhance efforts to build resilience against things that could have negative impact, whether it be through the economy, food, water, et cetera. It's non-regulatory and non-binding. It doesn't just include Metro. It doesn't just include counties. It includes whoever wants to be in it, really. And yet we are reaching out to local agencies and nonprofits and trying to get us all to communicate together so that you're never going to eliminate this group doing this thing over here and these guys doing this over here and these guys doing this over here. But it is an effort to try to bring a lot of that together, and there's an efficiency with that. Right now it's facilitated by the Resource Innovation Group, and they completed one of these compacts, which is going into projects in Florida, if you are interested in looking at. I think they have a website. I've not been on their website. So here's the Willamette Basin, and it's just a graphic for you. Within the Willamette Valley, probably the most unifying thing that I can think of is our natural resource in the Willamette River. That brings with it all kinds of issues with agriculture, water resources, fish, et cetera, flooding, the good with the bad, right? Water supply. And this really is what we're pointing at. We're not looking at all of Oregon. This is, as I mentioned before, strictly a Willamette Valley organization. It really has we've been talking about it for a couple of years now. It's been amongst staff of many cities and a few counties. And in the last year, this compact language was developed, which I've provided you copies with, and hopefully you've had a chance to read it. It's been reviewed, it's been drafted, it had several revisions based on reviewing it, changing some of the, I think I mentioned originally this really came about with some concerns about climate change in the Willamette Valley. And then folks started to realize that, sometimes that's a showstopper politically, to be honest with you. And that, by the way, it doesn't have to be just about that. There's so many other things that we could work around. And so we broadened the focus of what we would be working towards. So there's been several revisions. A few sets of attorneys have looked at it, including ours. The one addition that's not in the version you had before you that was brought by our city attorneys was there needs to be some sort of an opt-out clause. So we don't want to be in this anymore. So this is how we get out of it. Although, quite frankly, you can withdraw anytime. But they felt it was good to have it in the language. So at this point, we did have the first summit in December. That's what Mayor Neely was talking about, where many of the cities throughout the Willamette Valley got together and shared information about water, natural resources, governance. I talked about what does Public Works do. And at this point, they're trying to move forward. Now they really need people to sign on to the compact, endorse it, and get more focused than just writing this thing. So far, the counties of Benton, Lane, Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington have been participating. And you see the cities up there, and we really need to correct the Milwaukee. This is not Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is Milwaukee, Oregon. Oops. Sorry about that. And then, as you can also see, there's a host of other organizations that have an interest in what this compact will try to achieve. So I wanted to just try to summarize the benefits of participation. Some of them we've probably already said in other words, but one of the things that would be a goal is to formulate some joint policy positions and try to influence the legislature in Salem on some of the issues that we feel like are important in the Willamette Valley. The other thing is to collaborate on projects, and I mentioned already to reduce duplication, and also, of course, capture economies of scale in this kind of a compact. Obviously, one of the things you do with many organizations is you go seek out federal funding and technical support. The universities and other educational institutions offer a tremendous resource of knowledge and research that they could help us with. The idea is also to reduce competition for some of these resources so that you're working together and not side by side. Mentioned earlier that the benefits are to enhance and protect human and natural systems from future development, natural hazards, and climate impacts. This also has a potential of being a collaborative model for the Pacific Northwest. We would be the first group in the Northwest that would be formalizing such a compact. And then there are great things that come around people that are sharing a vision. So I mentioned that there has been some success with this in Florida. So some of the concerns that have been raised around the participation is there's a lot of folks that are so busy doing other things that they don't really feel that there's a big urgency to participate in this. Limited personnel time. I know all about that myself. And as I mentioned earlier, there's some political issues that are associated with discussing climate issues. So why do we need a compact, or why do we want a compact? I'm not here to tell you we need one. I'm here to just inform you about what's going on here. Efficiently and effectively address issues of regional resilience, build on existing collaborations, try to ensure that decisions that are made and policies that are created benefit one another and don't negatively impact a neighboring jurisdiction. And then also just basically to provide a platform for valley-wide projects. It's free, except for staff time and potentially elected official time, depending on how you want to get involved. At this point, they're trying to form a steering committee, which they're asking for, if you're going to sign on to the compact, that you identify a representative for your community to be on the steering committee. And that's something that is up to you if you want a staff person to do it, or if one of you want to play that role. The steering committee, just like any other committees you even saw tonight, committees can change, and depending on needs and where people are going with the whole thing. And it could be that at some point there is some sort of a fee to participate, or there may be requests to provide local matches for certain grant opportunities. Those are the things we just have to basically evolve with and adapt to as if they were to occur. And then some other concerns are that folks have been concerned that the compact could interfere with folks that are already moving forward on sustainability activities, et cetera. And that it's obviously not intended to turn anybody backwards or slow anybody down. The idea is to try to make the most of what we have and move forward. So that is something that communities that are further ahead, some cities have a whole sustainability department and they're smaller than we are. And we're kind of trying to do the best we can. So actually I think we could potentially gain from other experience. Don't want to drag this out too long. The legal issues I mentioned already. This is a voluntary non-binding agreement. Our city attorney's office did look at it, and I already told you what they commented on. This doesn't supersede any kind of local decision process here. the way it's set up right now, the steering committee would have some authority to change the compact language. However, I can imagine that, for example, if a staff person was on that steering committee, they should come to the city commission and make sure you're fully apprised of what's going on, and if things went sideways at any time, they would go sideways. Or hopefully they would just make comments and you'd have good input into any kind of changes. At this point, they're looking at trying to move forward with, getting past the organizational stuff and getting moving on some projects. And I don't know a lot of details about these kinds of projects, but that's because they're in their infancy. But one of them I thought sounded fairly interesting to Oregon City was to look at local food initiatives and look at them in the scale of the Willamette Valley and how that each jurisdiction might be looking at the Willamette Valley scale of food production together. And I know this commission has talked somewhat about are there possibilities like in the Beaver Creek Road area to work with some of the agriculture south of town, and we have our fabulous farmers market, and what else could we do with that? There's also the water storage opportunities. Locally, there's some concern about how long is the Clackamas River going to be able to sustain enough storage capacity for all the customers it serves. We're not to worry about that right now, but in the future, it's something we need to be looking at. And then how much does that then make us start thinking more about the Willamette Valley or the Willamette River and those kinds of water sources, wells, et cetera. There's also thinking about looking at a valley-wide approach for renewable energy development. I think that's another area that what I've heard is that the city's very interested in staying abreast of those kind of opportunities. And then, of course, looking at the Willamette Valley as a whole for ecological habitat and large-scale connectivity. That has been going on at a certain level throughout the Willamette Valley. But I think building upon that is probably where this compact would want to go. So there's also a lot of other things like flooding, wildfire, agricultural outreach that gets back to some of the local foods, alternative crops, should we see any kind of climate changes that would start impacting some of the crops we have or the water sources we have. Centralizing processing facilities, that's another thing that they thought could be a potential project. And the high-speed rail sounds like a little bit of a reach for this group, but again, I think it's something where it could be sort of almost like a library for the information about it, where people could, all the same information would be there available to folks. That is the end of the presentation. So at this point, I really just wanted to give you a lot of information. There were some attachments in your packet which were pretty much summarized in the PowerPoint. And I would kind of like to get a sense of if this is something that the City Commission would be interested in endorsing, and maybe how you'd want to handle that.
Well, I kind of have a question, and I don't know if it's you or maybe David. This sounds like a whole nother project, another department that seems to be evolving. So what about your time and your staff's time, and what is that going to look like?
Well, Nancy and I haven't talked very much about the time commitment, but I'm not expecting it to be any other staff other than one person, which would probably be Nancy or me, and I don't expect it to grow from that. I do expect the ideas to grow from that, and I do appreciate that in the draft that they have here, they spell out that nobody's going to be expected to put any money in. And
this point.
I see, and I do see there's a potential there for what I would call mission creep.
Yes.
But I think the one thing that well, let me just say this. There are a number of organizations in this mix that are a lot larger than we are. And depending on the nature of the organization, sometimes larger organizations will offer up their staff time and resources and expertise. So since they don't have money to hire consultants, they'll use their staff. But I just can't commit for us to have more than one person.
Right.
I think we're spread pretty thin the way it is. So
Yes.
that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Thank you.
A couple of points of interest to me are where you're looking at transportation and so forth. This might be a forum in which we can actually sit down and talk about what we can do about river transport. It involves, I mean, we're locks oriented and so forth, and we're sorry to see those close, but the fact that we've got this, I guess it'd be the second largest river in the state. I don't know if that's true or not, but the road's pretty long. But even so, it's in terms of a commercially used river system. I mean, a commercially and agricultural center, and the fact that we are not using our river for that purpose, I think is a great concern to probably all of us here. And it has to be more than just simply the history of the locks. It has to be, it should be a viable transportation corridor, and it's not. And you said not getting a rapid rail might be beyond us. I think we've got problems with commercial and public systems using the same rail system, and I think doing something else would be extremely expensive. But I would like to think there would be a way that we could work with Union Pacific and so forth to perhaps develop an infrastructure whereby we can have guaranteed arrivals and stops. I think the frustration of using Amtrak is that it's not that we need to necessarily be someplace very quickly. If it's done right, we can get there as quickly as we can by car. But we have to have fixed schedules. If we don't know, if we don't know if the train's going to arrive an hour late, an hour and a half late from the Coast Starlight, for example, or even later in Portland, and it's not a very effective mechanism of transportation. And maybe in this process we can develop some kind of a working relation with Union Pacific, of course, is the lines that we're looking at here for the most part. But it seems like we could do a lot better than what we're doing without necessarily having a bullet train.
Do you want to go?
No, no.
I have a question about the Resource Innovation Group. And it says they will support staff to facilitate all of this through December 2012 with longer engagement dependent on funding. So what is that funding and where is it coming from and who has it?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I think that
Definitely could be.
why don't I get you that information?
Okay.
And I thought I'd seen that extended for a little bit, but let me get you information on that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
But it does seem to me if you got a regional interest in something, there might be granting opportunities that wouldn't exist to individual counties, individual cities, but in terms of some focused planning activities where you actually have a region of interest that you might be able to have funding sources that we currently don't even have.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering where this is coming from right now.
Right. I understand.
I have a feeling it's probably federal dollars coming through the state, just because that's what most of these programs are run on. And I think probably the state recognizes how important the Willamette Valley is to the state. So I imagine that, like Mayor Neely said, that there's a. But I think it also depends on how your work goes. If you're being productive, you continue to get funded. If you're not getting anything done.
I guess my overall question is this Resource Initiative Group or whatever isn't like the Robert Wood Foundation where they're out there just being benevolent and putting this together with their own dollars.
Oh no, they're doing this based on grants. How would you like to move forward from this at this time?
Well, I suppose I'm going to be dragged along for a while longer, but
as long as you're He
interested.
says it with a smile.
Yeah.
Mike is...
It was. I mean, I've heard the resilience program before, but that was really my first introduction to it. Was this going down there? Interesting presentations that were made and by some of the other political entities there in terms of things that they're doing. I think it's in the baby step situation right now, and it's a case of seeing how it matures. But, I mean, the concept, I think, is a very good one, and there are areas of, I think, very common interest with people below the falls and people above the falls. And however that could be done would be great.
I will say, based on my experience, and even as well, we're not a small city, but as a city compared to a county or a larger agency, being at the table is better than not being at the table. I've never found it, if you're kind of just not participating or not paying attention, you kind of can get left behind or not get opportunities that you do have when you are engaged. So that would be just a comment I have from my own experience.
Which is a very valid comment, and I appreciate
I think
that.
the last time I heard that, though, that was Tri-City sale.
Yeah. That was Tri-City.
The last time I heard that line. No, I think this is, I mean, it's definitely something, sorry. Flag went up. So I think it's definitely something to be involved with, and I mean, that's just to see how it goes, and it could go various different directions, but I definitely think there's so many important conversations that can happen between all those entities. I think it's definitely something to be involved in.
Perhaps I can get answers to your questions about the funding, and then I could bring it forward as a resolution, and realizing that it's pretty, I don't like to use the word squishy, but it's probably, it's
a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, and you can just see how you like it.
Okay. Thank you.
In theory, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nancy.
My concern is your time and the creeper, the money.
Creeper.
Yeah, those are things we're very aware of too, David.
Creeper.
Okay.
We've
been asked, so I guess we're on to the next topic then. And what you have there, and I'm the spokesperson on this. We've been asked by the Willamette Heritage Area Coalition to adopt a resolution in support of the seeking of the Natural Heritage Site. Westland had already done so I had gotten their resolution, and much of what you see is their resolution until I came to the last bullet points where I was putting Oregon City in there.
Good job.
I'd like this to come forward at the next commission meeting. I consider this a draft, and I would like you to, over the next couple of days, if you can, or at least before Monday, to take a look at this and feel free to look at the whereases and see if there's anything that you think we want to encapsulate in our proclamation. And if you could get it in by Monday. We don't want to make it too long, but looks like we have a little bit of space to the bottom of that page there that we could insert a few whereases or perhaps alter what's already there.
One or two whereases.
Yeah, you might change the font. Change the font. Anyway, so if you would take a look at that, and you can take a glance at it right now if you want to. But then we can go ahead and
make comments by email to you.
Make comments. Yeah, send it in to myself and Nancy Ide.
Okay. Okie dokie.
So is that okay then? Okay, thank you very much. The city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to, has any of the commissioners heard about Main Street Oregon City and PSU and the Clackamas Arts Alliance? They're working on an idea to install an artistic lighting project on the elevator. Have you heard of this?
Cool.
Heard of any of it?
No.
Okay.
I've heard a little bit about it.
I've heard a little bit about it.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit.
I thought we were painting it, but
Well, there's that too, because there's what they call prepping the canvas, and right now the canvas is a little rough, and so it's not really bad, but it needs some work to get it ready for something like that, and so I want to go ahead and hand out this. I have a little fact sheet here that Lloyd gave me earlier today, and I will send you tomorrow to the electronic version, because there's links on here to these sites where you can go on and see what these artistic lighting projects look like. And I would just encourage you, when you look at those, I mean, there's a wow factor involved. There are these little YouTube videos, and they have older buildings around the world that have these artistic lighting projects installed on them. And our feature here, the elevator, is very unique. It's very different than any of these other structures. So it kind of makes your imagination go wild about what the possibilities might be. And then I was talking to Nancy this afternoon about timing something like this effort with the opening of the bridge.
Yes.
And
that would be very cool.
Could even inspire our neighbors across the river to do something with some of the things on their side of the river. We're always talking about that, Chris Jordan and I. So I will hand this out, and then I'll send you an electronic version, so you don't have to type in all these links.
Okay.
Because that's a little bit troublesome. There is a cost to us. Mostly, part of it is staff time, and that's why this thing that I'm handing out to you may be a little premature, because Nancy and I and Dave Wimmer have to talk a little bit more seriously about the budget, because essentially what it is if you spend $50,000 of your own money, you have a chance of getting about $100,000 in federal money to do the project. And our $50,000, we have about $5,000 of it that would probably come out of the street fund, but the rest of it is general fund. And so I have to get a little bit further along in the budget process before I can confirm to you whether we have the money. But the phrase Nancy and I used this afternoon was, let's see if we can cobble together enough of the balance of the money if the commission's interested. Okay. And you don't have to make that decision tonight, but I'll send you the electronic version tomorrow. You can click on some of the links and then give me your feedback. If you think this looks like something that you'd like to do, then we will certainly try to do it.
I want to close out the Urban Renewal Agency as being a possible source of funding as well.
Well, we didn't want to have that discussion yet until we saw where you guys were going to go.
I don't know. Do you want to open up?
But we would love to. I mean, that is definitely a source, and that is urban, and it needs renewal. So it is a public structure, but so are the streets that you've built too in urban renewal.
I mean, we have an Urban Renewal Agency, and we have to think about it. I mean, I could come up with a big list of things that we have funded, even with people that oppose the Urban Renewal Agency.
Absolutely.
The restoration of the Carnegie being one of them.
Right.
And there's several more. I mean,
right. And this is such an iconic landmark for your community. Yeah. It's almost like, to me, it's in a way, it's sort of screaming out for something like this to be done, and especially unrolling that at about the same time the bridge is open, it could really be a fabulous thing for us.
I have two questions. One is that any of this lighting, would it bother the people in the homes at the top of the elevator?
That's one of the things we got to find out.
And then the second
because
one
they're very focused. When you see the links, you can see that they're very focused. But they can be they can be a lot of movement, or there can just be a soft glow. I mean, it's pretty amazing the variety of stuff. And then you can program these things, apparently, so when you have special events, like 4th of July or Christmas or something like that, you can have special events and you can have a whole different set of
colors.
programs.
Yeah.
It's extremely interesting, and I guess for myself, when I watched all three of the links today, and then I just thought to myself, it's going to take somebody with a lot more experience in this than me to figure out how to do that and what format you would want it to take. But I certainly think you're right that the homes around that area, you don't want flashing neon things disturbing the peace.
They get train whistles. It's just one more thing.
I think they are. I think they actually are laser lights.
If you're familiar with the bridge lightings in Portland, that would be something I would think would tie in well if you could get West Lynn to do something on the other side.
Well, mostly I want to know, I want you to look at those videos tomorrow and then
Yeah.
give me some feedback about whether you want us to continue to explore it.
Yeah.
There's only a couple of
Or
weeks.
tonight.
Yeah. If you got feedback now and you know your thumbs are going to
No, I
go
like
this
to
way,
watch
then,
it tonight.
then
Yeah.
tell me. But we don't have very much time to apply for the grant. Now, keep in mind, and this is really a good point for your concern, Kathy, is that this isn't the design phase. So there will be lots of room for your input and other input from the community on the design piece. This is chasing the money, and I believe it's September. Well, it's going to be announced before September 1st, but as I recall, Lloyd told me we had a couple of weeks. So,
The way I understand it, unless the commission decided to handle this differently, this is an art project and it would follow the public art policy that we have, which would mean a solicitation for artists. Like
Right.
Very, per the book kind of a process which the commission can weigh in as they like.
it's the federal dollars are funded by the National Endowment for the Arts.
And would the this is the price tag, right? Or that's what we can ask for as an agreement,
Right.
And would that cover the project? I mean, do we have any idea how much a project?
The
like
city
this-
has to put in an in-kind contribution of $50,000.
Okay.
We have $5,000 of that already budgeted in Nancy's various funds, but that means we have to come up with the other $45,000.
And you were talking about the design phase would be later, obviously. But what I want to both ask an update question and just bring up a point that these two projects that need to be considered together, which would be one, the elevator, and Singer Falls. I know there's a project kind of going forward with lighting of Singer Falls again.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that's at right now.
Well, there's discussion, there, and let me,
know where it is.
well, it's still something that's being discussed in the Main Street Board.
But that very much needs to be considered with what's done at the elevator, and I think they not competing or make sure that those projects, if they're both going forward, are thought about in the same light.
Same light?
Well, what this is called, it's called
Pun intended.
it's called an Our Town grant, and I think
Yeah.
Main Street may be, I don't want to speak for their board, but I think they may be looking at this as a large, kind of iconic, more visible piece.
Yeah.
And the Falls is still on the radar, and I'm not sure they would get the same groups, because I know we have I think we have some volunteer people involved in the Falls
Right.
already.
I mean, I'm not necessarily thinking that they would be planned completely together, but that you think
Falls
that
is
we
a very
think about
simple
how
project compared to the
how
elevator.
they connect together,
Yeah.
because they definitely will complement
Absolutely.
each other.
I've been standing down there with a flashlight every night
Really?
as a volunteer.
That's very nice.
Wow. what hours are you down there?
You're such a dedicated.
I'm going to have to see that. Is that on YouTube?
So moving on with my reports. So the next thing I have doesn't require any money, but it's I'm really excited about this one. The city has received an Oregon Heritage Excellence Award for the 2011 citywide historic building survey that we completed last year, and I want to give our congratulations to Tony Conkle and to Christina Robertson Gardner, especially because she did so much of the work.
Did we get
And,
money?
Painter preservation.
Sound like a retarder.
I think this is really exciting,
We
though,
want
because
the money.
our survey was selected to receive the Oregon Heritage Excellence Award as an outstanding example of how to integrate historic resources and historic building survey work into larger planning efforts in Oregon. The Heritage Excellence Awards recognize individuals, businesses, and organizations for outstanding efforts on behalf of Oregon heritage. They honor those people and organizations who have made the most of available resources and skills. And that's from Kara Kaser, Heritage Outreach Specialist with the State of Oregon Heritage Programs.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's very good.
Thank you. That's great.
Also, I think Maureen Cole has something for us that she wanted to share with the commission.
Well, I just wanted to remind you that the robots are coming. Robopocalypse events start this Thursday night with a talk from Trevor Dodge, who is a Clackamas Community College English instructor, who will be talking about where is dystopia, and the concepts of dystopia and apocalyptic literature, comic books, and video games, which I think will be really interesting. And just so you know, one of the students from Clackamas Community College came down and interviewed me about that and the other Robopocalypse events, and that will be coming out tomorrow, the day before his talk. So I hope to attract a lot of college students with that, because I think it'll be really interesting. And we've really been talking it up with the high school as well through Jan Snyder, who is, as you know, we've been collaborating and doing some stuff with her. And then next week we get all Valentine-ish with a group called Heartstrings. Aww. And then the week after that, we have the Lego Robotics Club coming from the middle school with Legos for all ages, including you, Doug.
Woohoo!
Even up to your age.
Wow.
And
yeah. If I have a birthday soon, I don't have to do it then, right?
Well, no, even up to that age, whatever that would be,
there you go.
We've got you covered. And I'm hoping that the high school team could actually bring their full-size robot. But what I just learned is that, they bring these to competitions, and they get this date by which they have to stop all work. And the date for that is February 21st, which is 2 days before our author comes, which is kind of too bad, because I was really hoping they could bring it to the author event, and then we could get a picture of the author with the Oregon City High School team robot. Would be so cool. But anyway, I am hoping that maybe they could bring it on the Friday that the younger kids are coming, just because it would be a very cool photo op. But they might be doing last-minute work, so we just don't know. I'm just hanging on by a thread, just because I don't know, but I'd be really excited about that. And then the author comes on the 23rd, which is really exciting. And in the meantime, Linda Orzen and Ingrid Aubrey have been working on this whole new gig to get us some local artists make robot-like figures out of, found objects. And so they've been working on getting some of those to be displayed at the library. So it's been really, really fun and a really
very cool.
I just wanted to encourage you to attend and have you encourage all your friends to come. I think it'll be very, very fun.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Okay, shifting a little bit to the dark fiber. We still don't have an offer from the county, but I did get a call from the Deputy County Administrator. She's going to come down and visit with me on Thursday and present some other ideas. We got together about a little over a week ago and brainstormed, and I had come up with about 4 different alternatives, 2 of which the Commission had approved and 2 of which you hadn't approved, and we're not even sure that the federal government would approve them. But so we're still at it, but we still are waiting for their response. And as soon as I have it, you will have it. Also, I want to call on Nancy Ide about the interviews. She's got a reminder for you.
I want to make a comment there. I think we were all surprised. Well, we knew there was coming because we got notification, but that County Commissioner Bernard had wrote letters to the editor, including the Oregonian, and we felt the obligation to respond, so I've been working with staff, and we have, in fact, submitted responses to the papers, which will, Saturday's Community News, the Oregonian will cover.
It's already on, or it's already
It's
online.
on.
I know it is. I know it is online.
Yeah.
I read
And
it.
so,
I thought it was good.
I did too, yeah.
It was very
well,
good.
that's because a lot of people were contributing besides
Yeah.
myself. But anyway,
Well, that's good.
Go ahead then.
Thank you. Also wanted to let you know that as we've been implementing our the Commission's parking plan in the downtown, we've had some rumblings about the disabled parking requirements. There's been some changes in the layout and the philosophy, and there were so many people that were anxious for this to happen. And then we all knew, of course, that when we started doing it, there would be the group that wasn't as anxious, and change is difficult. So in order to be more proactive than reactive, I've asked Main Street Oregon City and the Oregon City Police Department to host a forum downtown. Probably over the next couple of months, they're going to host at least one forum to share information, exchange information and ideas about parking. And Nancy Bush and Chief Conrad and Lloyd Purdy will be kind of spearheading that effort to get information out to people, and also to deal with misinformation. There's some misunderstandings out there. I walked downtown today, and how many of you have seen the new pay stations. All of you
No,
seen?
I haven't-
You almost have to look really closely because Portland's are painted fairly well. They're a real intense green, and you can't really miss them. These are the best camouflage parking
Right.
stations I've ever seen because they just look like the same gray as the sidewalk.
Oh,
They just
really?
kind of
Yeah,
blend
I was
right
down
in.
there. I didn't see 'em.
Good.
Yeah, you really have to look for them to find them, which fits, I think, pretty well. It fits well in a historic area like your downtown.
I have a question about that. I saw something that looks like a bicycle rack down there or something. What
I
is
think
that?
there are some bicycle racks that are
A
part of the
round
project.
thing that you,
There are some bicycle racks. We've been experimenting with some different racks.
okay.
Can you remember exactly what it was?
It was by a pay station.
That narrows it down.
It's a round flat thing.
Yeah, you can clamp them onto existing meters or existing poles, which you can't call.
Yeah. Yeah.
There will also be some other bike racks coming in downtown. They're good project.
And you all know about the obelisk that's installed down
Yes.
there on the corner,
Mhm.
but now it has a light.
Cool.
And it's an LED light, right? A low energy LED light.
Is there going to be like a plaque on that, or
I believe
I
so.
think that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
We'll take a little thought.
Yeah.
Then I also wanted to ask Nancy Kay, if you want to talk about any of the project meetings you have coming up.
On the obelisk, we got 2 of them, did we not?
Yes. In fact, I think we might have another one too, but
So,
it's a little
but
unclear the
just-
condition.
It's only been that one that's been installed.
Yes.
This one.
Right.
Okay.
and where's the other one going to be?
We don't know. It's kind of like we don't want to rush. We want to
Right.
sort of. It could be that it may fit into the McLaughlin Boulevard Phase 2 project somewhere. There's a connection we're going to be making down to Clackamas Park, and that might be a kind of a thing. We're just
Okay. Okay.
If anyone has ideas, please let us know.
Thank you.
We're not going to put it in until we've talked about it, though.
Top of the elevator.
Top of the
And
elevator.
as you know, this thing was up for a while, and then it was only recently that the light got installed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I haven't been down there to
Yeah,
see it
I've
after
seen the light
dark,
on it.
but I saw the lights today, and there are 3 little LEDs that are angled up to
Cool.
to
Very
uplight
cool.
it. So it's probably looks really nice. Also, the mayor and Tony are going to Salem in a day or two to testify on House Bill 4090. You know a little bit about that, so we're going to be dispatching our folks down there to talk about that. And Nancy, did you have any
Yeah,
project meetings?
my meetings. Tomorrow, there are 2 meetings that are sponsored by ODOT and Oregon City, primarily by ODOT, but we're trying to collaborate on them. One is in the morning at 9 o'clock at Cypress Restaurant, and that's primarily for the downtown businesses to give them, for ODOT to provide them information on this paving project that's happening this spring and summer. McLaughlin Boulevard is being paved between 10th and south of Kanema. Then they're also going to give them an update on the Arch Bridge, and we'll talk to them about the Main Street project, which we've had such an ongoing dialogue. There's really not much new, but there's always something to talk about. And then also we want to start talking, answering more and more questions about the 4-day closure for the 213 jug handle bridge installation. Then at 5 o'clock tomorrow night at the Pioneer Community Center here, there will be the same agenda of presenting information on all those projects, but it's more of a community-wide invitation. And then on February 27th, this is probably a new date for many of you, mark your calendars for the first open house for the Transportation System Plan. And that will be held, I believe, here at City Hall.
And that's the 22nd?
27th.
Seventh.
And that'll be between 5 and 7.
What date did you say the one at the Carnegie Center was?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
At the
Pioneer
Pioneer
Center.
Community Center tomorrow.
Tomorrow evening? then?
Yes.
Okay.
And my one final thing is you'll recall a little bit of a controversy we stirred up with the commission and staff's efforts to try to deal with these marijuana dispensaries, the ordinance. So I have asked Ed Sullivan to simply add one sentence and no other changes to that ordinance. And the one sentence essentially will say, I think what Mr. Kevin Hunt more or less recommended, which is that the city manager shall issue no business license if he reasonably believes he or she reasonably believes it will create a violation of state, federal, or local law.
Right.
And that's the only change.
And will that take care of the issue?
Yes, I think it will. It won't make it as conclusive for the city, but I do think it'll take care of it. It doesn't clear up the question about how the appeal is handled. We probably won't even address whether the fire chief or should still have his name in the ordinance. We're just trying to get to the heart of the most critical part of the change, because what happened was, I think Ed, our attorney, looked at the ordinance and tried to fix all of the little anomalies that were in it over the years, because it's been around a while.
Right.
And what that did was, even though he had the best intentions, it was a more comprehensive redraft, and all it did was stir up a lot of discussion about things that really aren't germane to what your concern is. So I think if we do that, we can handle these as they come, and I think we'll be in a much better position if we get another application like that. And so, Ed or Bill, one of them will be sending the chamber a letter outlining, basically including that one sentence, and then I'm going to ask the chamber, look, this is more for you than it is for the staff here to have something to do. And so if you want to be in a position to ask us to help you, you need to let us know how you feel about this.
Right.
And essentially going to ask them, suggest to them, if you want the commission to pass it, you need to give us a letter of support and let them know how you feel about it.
Yeah, that's great.
We'll see how that goes.
Thank you. That's great.
Nancy.
Everybody's got their packets here, too.
Okay, but I have one more question. Tomorrow night, what time tomorrow night at the Senior Center? Community Center. Sorry.
5:30 to 7.
Thank you.
Nancy.
And I just wanted to give you a little information about the special meeting that is being held for you for the City Commission on February 13th. That's next Monday at 4 o'clock, and of course the purpose is for the interviews for the vacancy. Again, the meeting begins at 4. The first 15 minutes will be a chance for you to discuss your process, talk about your questions, whatever you want to discuss during that time. There are 10 applications, and you have your binders there at your desk this evening with the questions as well as the applications. And the appointment is scheduled to be under the general business for February 15th, which is next Wednesday. So that would give you a couple days to mull over those things, and then you can also deliberate on that at the meeting as well.
Okay.
Each applicant is scheduled for a 30-minute interview, and it's apparent just a little bit important to keep them on task. I'm also going to, just for your benefit only, set the timer on your monitors so that it will count down, so you kind of know when you're coming up on that 30 minutes, and then it's up to you if you want to continue or what you want to do with that. So that's about it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you for organizing this.
That's all we have this evening, Your Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Well, is there no other comments? We'll go ahead and adjourn. Looks like we had some good candidates.
Yeah, I'm glad to see